What's going on, Ambitious Vet? Chris Hoffman here, CEO and founder of the Ambitious Vet Network, one of the largest online personal and professional development communities for post 9/11 veterans who aspire to become more post-military. If this is you diving right back inside the trenches with us again this week, thanks for coming here. If you're brand new tuning in this week, we just say thank you. Here, our mission is simple. We want to provide you with the golden grenades or quote unquote critical insights to help you break through to new levels of life satisfaction, fulfillment, and success in your life post-military. If you feel challenged enough or have a mindset shift or an aha moment inside these episodes, we've done our job. Just make sure that you do yours by sharing it across your networks, sharing with anybody that you think would make a big difference in or may just feel down on their luck. We all feel that when we transition out of the military, so make sure that you are speaking life and being the servant leader that you're committed to being post-military. Sound good? So, Ambitious Vet, what are we diving into this week? Well, I think we all can agree that leadership in some capacity is missing in today's marketplace, right? But if you want to learn more about the top 3 leadership traits that are missing in today's society that only you that's listening to this, a post 9/11 veteran, can provide, stay tuned because you're going to learn from a 23-year retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, author, and also accomplished speaker and keynote speaker, Lieutenant Colonel retired Oakland McCulloch. Stay tuned, Ambitious Vet.
To the question that you asked, what is it that vets can bring to the leadership that I think is missing so sorely in our society today at all levels and in all different professions, whether it's politicians, university presidents, military generals and leaders, you name it, we have problems in leadership. I think the number one thing is responsibility. You can as a leader, you can delegate all the authority you want, and you should. And I used to have a boss who retired, a 4-star general, and he said, "Oh, on leadership, there's this scale, and on one end you have chaos, Attila the Hun, and on the other end you have micromanaging. You want to be as close to chaos as you can get, as comfortable as you can be." You want to give away as much authority and let other people make decisions and do things on that scale.
Today's show is brought to you by Michael Hyatt and Company, their full focus planner. Ambitious Fit, I got a question for you. Do you ever feel like me where you desire to accomplish a lot in your day, your week, your month, or quarter, but you don't actually have as much time as you think you need to actually accomplish your goals? Your questions kind of linger of what are the big rocks? What are kind of the big actions you need to be taking every day, weekly, monthly, and quarterly to win your next war and really just achieve mission accomplishment, right? Well, my secret weapon is the Full Focus Planner. It helps you achieve more while doing less. It's a science-backed productivity system that equips you with a clear plan for daily progress. It also prompts you for 10 life domains and helps you start thinking outside the box a little bit, which, me as a former Marine, sometimes that can be challenging. We can so much one-track minded, right? So it helps you kind of think outside the box to make sure you're focusing on what matters most in all areas of your life, like your relationships, career success, personal health, and more. Tools like the Big 3 is a big money maker for me every single week to help eliminate daily overwhelm. And each day I experience somewhat of a win, so I feel like I'm progressing. The overall format is super easy to follow, even that a Marine, a crane eater can follow. And you can even choose from several styles and colors to score the planner that feels just right for you. If you are a social proof kind of a person that likes credibility boosters, Forbes.com named the Full Focus Planner the #1 best daily planner. So Ambitious Vet, if you're like me, want to get focused during times of chaos, go check out the Full Focus Planner. I got the $40 $40 one. I ordered this on, every single quarter to get renewed so I can stay focused. They've got some all the way up to about $150. I'm a Marine. I do a lot with little, so I got the $40 one. If you're ready to achieve some of your most ambitious goals, ambitious vet, and live the life you desire post-military, the Full Focus Planner is going to be your weapon of choice. It's available now at thefullfocusplanner.com/ambitious vet. Again, that's fullfocusplanner.com/ambitious vet.
It's time to get into the trenches, dig into your purpose, and fire up your life's fulfillment. The Ambitious Vet Podcast starts now.
What's going on, Ambitious Vet? We are right back inside the trenches this week with retired Lieutenant Colonel Oakland McCulloch. He was born in Loudon, Tennessee, and raised in Kirkland, Illinois. After graduating from high school, he attended the United States Military Academy at West Point for 2 years. He then graduated from Northern Illinois University and received his commission as an infantry officer through the Reserve Officer Training Course in 1986. In his 23-year career in the Army, Oakland McCulloch held numerous leadership positions in the infantry and armor branches. He received 31 military service awards, including the Bronze Star, 8 meritorious service medals, and the Humanitarian Service Medal. His last position in the Army was a 3-year tour as the professor of military science at the University of South Alabama, where he led the training and commissioning of lieutenants and tripled the size of the program in his 3-year tour. He retired in September of 2009, has joined the staff at the Bay Area Food Bank as the associate director. He has also been the vice chair for military affairs on the Mobile Area Chamber of Commerce and member of the Mobile Rotary International Club and many other leadership roles since his retirement. But I'm going to throw this over and welcome retired Lieutenant Colonel McCulloch. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be on the show.
Yeah, definitely super excited. I think, as we were saying offline, just a very timely subject going on right now as far as what is leadership, how is leadership transferable, just out of the military, and how ambitious vets can really leverage those leadership skills, during these times of chaos, right? And
I just had this discussion this morning with one of the people I work with there at the ROTC program where I recruit, and I was talking about, we need some leadership in this country. We are hurting in a lot of areas, and we got to get back to teaching the right things about leadership.
Amen to that. Amen to that, sir. And it's, you've wrote an amazing book called Your Leadership Legacy, Becoming the Leader You Are Meant to Be. I mean, writing that book, spending 23 plus years, in the Army and being in various leadership roles. What is leadership to you?
Yeah, well, you can always define it. I mean, and lots of people define it different ways. And if you're looking for a definition, I would tell you that I still use the Army's definition of leadership. The process of influencing people by providing purpose, direction, motivation, while trying to accomplish a mission. And a company can use task, whatever they want to, while making the organization better. And I think, I tell people all the time when I go around and talk about leadership during my presentations that, you can look at all the Fortune 500 companies out there, and I think they pretty much define it the same way. They may use a couple words that aren't military type words, but that's a pretty good definition. But beyond that, I mean, everybody can tell what, a definition is by that, by rote memory or whatever. But to me, leadership is all about selfless service. It comes down to that. And I tell everybody that, and it's in one of my books, it's all about you. It's not about you. It's not about you, and that it's not about the privileges that you're going to get. And it's nice as a leader you might get more money, you might drive a nicer car, you might live in a nicer house. Okay, that's good. But that isn't why we made you the leader. We
Right.
made you the leader so you could better serve those who work for you and those that you work for. And if you don't figure that out, you're never going to be a good leader. And I tell all the brand new lieutenants when I commission them, the day that we commission them from our program, I tell them, look, enjoy today, because today is all about you. You made it. You are now a second lieutenant in the United States Army. Congratulations. After we pin those bars on you tomorrow, when you wake up, it is no longer about you ever again. It's about your people. It's about the mission. It's about the Army. It's about the country. Then if we have time, we might talk about you, maybe.
So I love that. I love that philosophy around it's all about you, but it's also not about you at all.
Yeah. Well, and the part that it is about you is very simple. It's about all those things that you got to do to make yourself a good leader, a servant leader. That's what it's about. Not about what you're getting out of it, but what you're giving and what you're taking care of. That's, in my opinion, that's what leadership is about.
No, I love that because I think it's no like surprise that military veterans, like we get out and we're so mission focused, right? We get out in the trenches of the civilian world and we're constantly just communicating from how do we get the mission done? 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 Over and over again. And we may fall into being cultural misfits as well, which I'm sure you're very apparent, very privy to. But I mean, from your perspective, even getting out and having successful leadership roles out in the civilian sector, how do we go from so mission driven to actually building leadership around us as well? Because I think that is somewhat of a problem out in the marketplace today around how do we leverage veterans' skills and how do we actually translate their skills, right? And we have keen leadership skills, right? But sometimes
absolutely.
we don't.
Great leadership skills.
We just don't know how to communicate them, right? Because we're so like, what's the mission so we can get it done? So how would you say, and answer this however you'd want, but how do we translate our leadership skills in the marketplace to build our economical value?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm a firm believer. I absolutely believe that leadership is leadership. Doesn't matter where you learned it. Doesn't matter where you practiced it. If you are a leader, that leadership ability, skills transfer from one profession to another, no matter what it is. And I'm a perfect example of that. I was a combat arms officer. I was an infantry officer, armor officer. And when I retired, I took over a food bank. You don't go more than 180 degrees from that. I mean, that's about as opposite as it gets. Right. And I knew nothing about running a food bank. I absolutely nothing. And then I go to being, in charge of the day-to-day operations and in charge of the hiring and firing and in charge of those type of things in this organization. And, so, and I always tell people, I did that not knowing anything. When I took over as the associate director, we were handing out 1.2 million pounds of food a year. When I left 18 months or so later, we were handing out 3.8 million pounds. So again, mission driven. I mean, and I don't think we ever get rid of that. And we don't want to, because that's part of what makes us valuable to organizations, whether they know it or not. That's one of the things that makes us valuable. But I think you have to put it in terms and in a way that the civilians working around you can understand. So I think one of the ways you do that is that you have to be able to translate what the vision is as a leader. And whether you're a junior leader, whether you're a senior leader, whether you're just another worker bee that, even though you're not a leader, people may still follow you. And that's, we all know that happens. No matter who's called the leader, you always got that person who is really the leader in an organization sometimes, especially at the lower levels. So if you're that leader, then you got to be able to translate what your vision is, because if you can do that, then you get people motivated, because that's what motivates people. People come to work for an organization for a vision. They leave because the poor leadership isn't getting them to that vision. But if you can tell them not only what you want done and how you want it done, but more importantly, why it has to be done, to get to that point, then you got people's attention. And I don't care if you're the lowest man on the totem pole or you're the senior person in the company. If you can do that, you're value added and people will pay attention to you. If you can't do that, then people are moving on, because that's what motivates people, is a sense of purpose. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think from your perspective, being a 23 plus year retired lieutenant colonel in the Army, that's called like commander's intent. How do you lay out the commander's intent, right? And then unpackage that for execution and, for empower, potential mid-level managers. If you're an executive or a mid-level manager, your small team of 8 to 10 positions that you're responsible for leading, right? And how do you cast that commander's intent? So one thing I'm sure that you're aware of, sir, is that, there's this big research study out there that talks about how veterans are just missing out on emotional intelligence. Like they just don't have interpersonal skills, right? Because we're so like, let's just get it done. We kind of like force outcomes and emphasize later is kind of what, some people are describing as, right? So how do we actually communicate the vision to our civilian counterparts? Because I know that you do a lot of speaking around the nation, around how to empower leaders, military leaders, and just leaders in general inside the corporate, private sector, and government sectors, right? So how do we communicate this vision effectively to keep people on pace to get the job done? Because hell, veterans love doing that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, communication is one of the most important skills of not just a leader, of anybody. If you want to be successful in life, you've got to be able to communicate. And I believe that 100%. And as I get asked to come talk to, sometimes somebody will ask me, Oak, we're having problems in this organization. Can you come take a look at it? And I'm happy to do that. And I always do. But one of the first things I always ask when I go there to take a look is I say, how good is the communication in this organization? And the answer I always get is it's great. And I said, well, I doubt it, or I probably wouldn't be here. Because that is normally one of the biggest things that is a problem in an organization. So what I tell people is, if you want to be able to communicate to people and get that vision out there, number one, you have to be able to tell them, like I said, not only the what and how you want things done, but the why. Because this generation of people want to know why. My generation, you didn't have to tell me why. You just had to tell me what you wanted done, and I did it. That is not the generation today. I'm sorry. They want to know why they're doing something, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just old people like us got to get used to doing that. I mean, that's just, and sometimes we don't like to do those kinds of things, but we have to be able to do it, and we have to be able to tell them that why we want it done, and then we got to give them feedback. If somebody's not producing what you're asking them to do, you got to give good and bad feedback. We all like to get that pat on the back saying, "Hey, good job, great job." That's important, and you got to do that. But just as importantly, you got to give feedback about when they're not meeting what you're asking them to do, when they've strayed off that path toward the vision. You got to be able to bring them back on track. And I always tell people, if you have somebody who's not on the path or who isn't producing what you're asking them to produce, and you haven't told them, then those people aren't to blame. You are. They might think that they're actually doing exactly what you're asking them to do. They don't know.
Right. No, that's amazing stuff. I think that's very practical as well. Right. And I got hooked. My brain was on the why, because that was one of my, and I am a millennial. I'm 33 years old. So I like to know the why, because it inspires my emotions, right? It gets me emotionally attached to something, gets me passionate, gets me in my emotions. It has me see purpose, right? So I'll just call that white elephant out. But when I was inside the corporate world for a while as a mid-level manager, I think this is important for an ambitious vet that may be a mid-level manager inside the private sector too, right? Is one of the biggest feedbacks I had as a mid-level manager was, hey, you're sitting here laying out the commander's intent for your team of 8 to 10 people, but you've got to tell them the why, and why these KPIs, why the metrics are the way they are. Yeah. And if you ambitious vet, if you don't know what KPIs are, key performance indicators, why they exist, because you don't want people to feel like they're machines. You don't want them to feel like their job is just to continue to spit out numbers and be, that productive. What has people get productive is explaining the why, which tunes into their emotions, which to your point is
absolutely, Chris. And,
yep.
and one of the things I always tell people is that, a job as a leader is to motivate people. And what motivates people in the real world is not money, sex, or fame. That's for 99.9% of the people in the world. That is not what motivates people.
Right.
What motivates people is that sense of purpose. We all want a sense of purpose in everything we do, whether it's our job, our relationship, our hobbies, whatever we want that sense of purpose. And I tell people the way to figure out what that sense of purpose is, the way to figure out how to motivate somebody is to figure out what makes your organization unique. And if you can figure that out, then you got a pretty good inroad into what's going to give them that sense of purpose. In the Army, as a combat arms officer, it was never hard to motivate my soldiers, the people who work for me. I said, look, we support and defend the Constitution of the United States. We protect the American people, our way of life. Let's go.
Right.
Motivated.
Yeah,
exactly. What? That didn't work at the food bank, Chris.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think that is? Was it like a large group of volunteers or?
Well, I think it was just a whole different mindset. It wasn't that, I'm there for the country. I'm there for these individuals that need help. And I use this example. When we were in a meeting and we were talking about one of the largest food handouts that we did every year. And we were going through the planning process of what we were going to do and when and how and everything. And at 4:00 in the afternoon, everybody started closing their books and looking at their watch. And I said, what are you doing? And they said, well, boss, it's 4:00. It's time to go home. And I said, we're not done. And they said, but it's 4:00. It's time to go home. I said, okay. I said, that's fine. If you want to leave, go ahead and leave. But before you leave, let me make one thing very clear. 3 weeks from now, when we go to hand out this food and some 19-year-old young lady goes home and can't feed her 2-year-old daughter because we didn't get this right, you are to blame. How many people you think left? 0. Not a single one of them.
Not many.
I figured it out. They were focused on those who needed their help, not big picture of government, country, American people. They are concentrated on those people, individual people that they get to see that they're helping. That's what motivated those people at the food bank. And my job got 100% easier when I figured that out.
Yeah. And I love that because it ties back into the philosophy you were talking about earlier in the show, which was, it's about you, but it's not about you. It's more about others, that kind of philosophy. Right. And how do you actually be able to communicate to the people that you're leading in such a way that has them see the impact of what it's like if the job isn't done? Now, you obviously can't work them like slaves if their time slot says, you've got to go at 4:00. So there is that thing in the civilian.
Yeah, and that's something we don't understand in the military. We work till the job's done, whether that's 4:00 in the afternoon or 4:00 in the morning. It doesn't matter. And that was a rude awakening for me. And I think that's a rude awakening for a lot of vets who get out of the Army or the military. Not necessarily the Army, the military. And they go into the civilian world where it isn't that way. It is not focused on getting it done and getting it done now. It can wait till tomorrow in the civilian world in a lot of cases. And we don't understand that. Yeah, no,
I mean, quick story. And then I just thought of a really awesome question to ask you before we move into the last segment of the show. And this is amazing. Even for me, it's like, I'm learning so much. I'm just like, fuck, that's why, but Ambitious Vet, I hope you're getting some golden grenades. I know you are as well. I remember when I first got the job that I left before I started this Ambitious Vet network movement. I remember when I got a sales career, and it took me, no shit, Oakland, it took me probably 3 months to actually start learning the sales process, how to sell, how to learn the product knowledge, industry knowledge. And, it was me and another, not retired, but a transition Marine, we'll just say that, right? I did 4, he did 4. We got out honorably discharged. Every single day we'd get our butt kicked cold calling people. We would be still there. Everyone else got off at 3:30 and we would stay there till 5, listen to our call recordings and stuff like that. Right.
And to try to learn.
Yeah. We hated failure and we wanted to speed up our learning curve. Right. And I think that just points to how fast we got good at that job. And I think veterans need to know, that's listening to this, that you do know how to spend extra hours to accelerate your learning, right? Versus, oh, it's 3:30, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, find ways to separate yourself from the civilian counterparts. I mean, I'm not trying to divide anybody, but
no,
yeah.
But Chris, I talk about this all the time,
Yep.
and I've talked about it in the book, and I talk about it in my presentation, and I talk about it whenever I talk to anybody. In the fantasy land, results don't matter. Everybody gets a trophy. Everybody's a winner. In the real world, that ain't the case. In the real world, winning and getting results matter. And so that's where I think that we as veterans have an upper leg on our civilian counterparts who have grown up in the civilian world, where we know that results matter, because lives matter and lives are dependent on the results that we get. So we understand that 100%. Sometimes we have to tone it down just a little bit when we get into the civilian world to fit in, but we understand that results matter and that you got to do things and get things done. And no matter what that takes, because, I'm a firm believer, I played baseball all my life, even in college. And, the old saying that 3 strikes you're out, where in life, that is not the case. It's not like baseball. There's not 3 strikes and you're out. If on the 3rd time you don't succeed, you figure out something else to do. And if that doesn't work, you figure out the next thing to do.
Right.
You just keep going until you succeed.
Trial and error. I love it. I love that. And I'm a baseball guy, played 15 years of baseball. And I know anybody that's listening to this, even if it's football, whatever sport you played, even if you didn't play sports, whatever instrument that you went through trial and error, relate it and familiarize with that skill that you developed. But Oakland, I want to ask you this question, right? I wrote it down while you were talking earlier, and it's, what are some of the top leadership traits that you see are missing in the world today? I mean, think about the chaos that's going on, man.
Yeah.
We just got pulled out of Afghanistan. People are going crazy. Post 9/11 vets are just being like, hey, was my service even worth it? We just have a lot of madness going on. But what would you say are the missing leadership traits that veterans could bring to the world today?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to answer that question. Yeah. Before I answer that question, I'm going to go back to the Afghanistan thing. Because I have buddies. I did not serve in Afghanistan. I was in the first Gulf War. I was in Bosnia. I was in Kosovo. Didn't try to get out of Afghanistan. Just the Army sent me other places. And I've got friends who, did multiple tours there, and I got other friends who didn't do any tours there, just like me. So it just depends on where you were in the cycle. But my buddies who went there, because I had buddies, the day all this stuff started happening, the week this stuff happened, they came and asked the same question, so why was I there? What did I do? And I tell them this. I say, and I would tell anybody who served either in Iraq or Afghanistan, no matter how it ended, no matter how this administration or any administration, however it was going to end, does not diminish your service there a single bit. You still served honorably. You helped people, whether it was the Afghan people or the American government, the American people, in whatever way it was that you were asked to serve. You served honorably, and it does not matter how it ended. That does not diminish what you did a single bit.
Yeah, that's commander's intent from a retired lieutenant colonel there, ambitious vet. Attention to orders. I love that.
So I just want to make that so clear to people, because I get that same question. I get buddies who ask that same question, and I just got to be, you got to understand that isn't on you. You did what you were asked to do, and you did it honorably and well, and that's all that you could do. So to answer the question that you asked, what is it that vets can bring to the leadership that I think is missing so sorely in our society today at all levels and in all different professions, whether it's politicians, university presidents, military generals and leaders, you name it, we have problems in leadership. I think the number one thing is responsibility. You can as a leader, you can delegate all the authority you want, and you should. And, I used to have a boss who retired, a 4-star general, and he said, "Oh, on leadership, there's this scale. And on one end, you have chaos, Attila the Hun. And on the other end, you have micromanaging. You want to be as close to chaos as you can get, as comfortable as you can be. You want to give away as much authority and let other people make decisions and do things on that scale. You want to be as far away from the micromanaging piece as it is." And I think two things. I think number one, a lot of leaders today are micromanagers. They're not leaders, and that is horrible. The evil of micromanaging is this: when you micromanage somebody, you're not only affecting that person, you are affecting everybody that person is going to work for the rest of their life, because you have cheated them out of an experience that they cannot teach the people who are going to work for them. So you could be affecting your company for the next 20 years when you micromanage somebody. So that's the evil there. I think the other piece of that is that leaders can give away authority all they want, and they should, but they can never, ever give away responsibility. I don't care what went wrong. I don't care whose fault it was. If it was your organization that did not meet the standard for whatever, then you as the leader are responsible. And you need to step up and say, "Hey, boss, I screwed up, and this is how we're going to fix it." And as long as you do that, nobody cares if you made a mistake. We're all going to make mistakes. That's just the fact of life. As long as you don't try to hide it, you don't try to blame somebody else, you take owner of your mistake and you move on and you fix it, then everybody's okay with that. So I think that's number one. I think number two, that one of the problems that we have is that people aren't decisive. I think, leaders today are so afraid of failing and so afraid of making a mistake because it's going to tarnish their career that they've pushed things down the road until it's too late to make a decision. And then when they make a decision, it's already OBE, it's overcome by events, or it doesn't have the impact that it would have had. And one of my favorite quotes is Rommel used to say, a leader has to be decisive, and they have to know the difference between a risk and a gamble. So a risk, leaders need to take risk. And a risk, if it's wrong, you can always recover from it. If you're gambling and you make a mistake, it's over. There's no recovering. So you got to know the difference. I got that. But as leaders, we have to be decisive, and we have to take risk. That's just life. That's if you're going to be the leader, you got to own that.
I love that. I love personal responsibility, just stepping up, raising your hand. Hey, I'm the leader. I'm the guy that's going to step up or own the mistake, but always bring a solution whenever you do own the mistake too, Ambitious Vet.
Absolutely. And I always tell people, look, when to go along with that, when your team does something well, then you got to give credit where credit is due. It isn't you go say, "Hey, boss, look what I did," because you didn't do it. The people on your team did it. And you go say, hey, boss, look what my team did. And if John and Joe did something really great, hey, John and Joe did a great job this time. Give them credit, because they earn it. And if you think as a leader, go back to that vision thing. If you think you're going to get your organization from where you are today to where your vision is a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and you're going to do that, you're sadly mistaken. It's going to be the people who work for you. So you got to take care of them, and you got to give them credit where the credit is due. If you do that, they're willing to go above and beyond to do the things you ask them to do. If you don't do that, then why do they want to work for you?
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a good mindset shift too. Is like, I think so many times we get out and lead, and we lead with our ego of like, we want to be important. We want to be recognized. And to kind of have that small, subtle mindset shift of like, hey, these are the future leaders of the organization. If I can build these leaders, or if you're a startup entrepreneur, like, hey, if I can build a team here and help them become successful, this is ultimately the bigger vision of what happens at the end of this road. And then, you're automatically going to your point, drive the nice car, have increase in your life, be able to provide for your family. That's right. In turn.
And they will be able to, because a successful organization, everybody is better off than in thing. And the last thing, one more thing on that question of what I think is lacking today. I think it's leaders are no longer setting the example. And that is sad.
That is.
Leaders are leaders 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You don't get to take a vacation from being the leader. Now, does that mean you can't take a vacation? No, we all know you can, but you're still the leader. And if your organization calls and says, hey, boss, I know you're on vacation, but we got a problem, then you got to put aside the vacation for a minute, 10 minutes, an hour, whatever it takes to fix the problem. You're the leader. You've got to set that example all the time because people are watching you. And that kind of goes back to the title of my book. What leadership legacy do you want to leave? Do you want to leave that legacy that I met the standard and I held people to standards, or that, I'm supposed to work till 5, but I'm tired today. I'm going home at 4. Well, if you can go home at 4, why can't the people that work for you go home at 4? I mean, you got to have some standards and you got to enforce standards. And I don't think we're doing that anymore. People are too afraid to enforce standards, and leaders at all levels are not willing to set the standard themselves.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that's a systematic problem, or do you think it's,
I think it's one, I think it's society that we're back to this. If whatever's good for me, which is just boggles my mind, but if it's good for me, then it's okay. I think the younger generation is moving that way. But then I think it's also that we have allowed leaders to forget why they are there. We have allowed leaders to forget that they are servant leaders. They are not there for themselves. And until we get back to making sure people understand that it's not about them, we're going to have this problem, I think. Because if you understand it's about you, that it's not about you, that it's about your people, you're going to meet the standards. You're going to show them what the standards are. And I go back to whenever I was a professor of military science, you're in this civilian community. There's not very many soldiers around a university generally. And so a lot of my friends would say, so what do you really do? And I said, well, I commission lieutenants, because they don't know what that means, most of them. I said, but in the end, here's really what I see my mission as a professor of military science and as a leader, is that every day it's my job to make every one of the people in my organization want to be like me. And if I do that, then I have accomplished what I need to do as a leader. And if we get back to that mindset, I think we'll see the world, our country, a little bit better off.
Yeah, no, amen. I love that. I love it. So I'm going to move to the last segment of the show. And really the last segment is, there's an ambitious vet that's out in the trenches of life, sir, that's, been out. We call it the immediate transitional window, which is the first 24 months. They've kind of gotten the career stability, their competence in the basics of career stability, financial stability, maybe. But ultimately, they're looking to move to the next level of life.
Right.
And they're missing something, right? They're ambitious.
Yeah.
And maybe their human capital doesn't, really match up to their goals and aspirations, but they're just missing something that gives their life that the military gave them, right?
Yep.
What would be one last golden grenade that you would give to that ambitious vet, and then we'll give them a call to action?
Yeah. So here's what I tell people, and I live by it myself. I tell, if you're really ambitious and you can't figure out what it is that you're missing, you got to go back to goals. Goals are what gets us from here to there. And I always tell people, when you're setting goals, you don't just set the next level. That's easy. You set where you want to be. And I always kind of say, there's no such thing as in the perfect world. That perfect world doesn't exist. But when you're setting that goal, if you think about what would I want this to be like in the perfect world, you set the goal there. You may never get there. You probably aren't going to get there. But if you keep pushing toward it, you're going to get close. And Vince Lombardi used to say, one of the greatest coaches in the history of football, whether you like the Green Bay Packers or not. And I don't. I grew up in Illinois. So, but still, Vince Lombardi used to say that, perfection is unachievable. But if you strive for perfection, you might get excellence. So you want that goal as far out there as you can. And then you got to set those goals. And a goal, in my opinion, you got to do 3 things for it to be a goal. Number 1, you have to write down what it is you want to accomplish. If you write it down, now it's It's there. You can see it, you can read it, every day you can do something about it. Number two, you got to commit to doing something about it. You got to say, okay, that's my goal. Now let's figure out that vision and plan of how I'm going to get to that vision. Now I got to figure out that plan. And number three, you got to take action within the first 24 hours. If you do something within the first 24 hours to move toward that goal, now you're on that path, and now it's a little bit easier. The longer you wait, the harder it is to realize what that goal is. And I think that's the key. And I think if we push ourselves, push the limits of what we know we can do as vets, and we don't settle for less than what we know is our standard, then I think that will help us out as well. And the last piece of that is just to be like we always were in the military when we're on a mission, is be a bulldog. Don't accept no for an answer. Don't accept failure. Like I said, in the baseball analogy, if you try 3 things and it doesn't work, try another one. But just be tenacious about it and try to make sure that you're moving every day a step further, a step closer toward that goal. And I think if you do that, then I think some of that task and purpose that we are so used to using comes back to you, and you start getting motivated to do those things. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. An ambitious vet, again, that's attention to orders from a retired lieutenant colonel of the Army, Oakland McCulloch. He's wrote a great book called Your Leadership Legacy, Becoming the Leader You Were Meant to Be. Amazing book. But Lieutenant Colonel McCulloch, I'd love to just tee it over to you. Where can an ambitious vet that's listening to this right now learn more about you? I know you do speaking engagements all around leadership, probably in the private government sectors and many more, or where they can go to connect with you and gain mentorship or direction from you.
Yeah. So, and absolutely, if somebody wants to connect with me and, after all this and have personal questions, I'm happy to address those and work with anybody who in your, I wouldn't say organization, but in your kind of area here that you
Network,
follow you, I'm happy to help any way I can. So I have a website, www.ltc, Oak, O-A-K, McCulloch, MCCULLOCH, and .com. And you can go to that website. And from that website, you can either buy the book. There's a link that'll take you right to the book if you're interested in buying a book. The book is available in hard cover, paperback, and Kindle. So whatever you prefer. Then you can also subscribe to my website, and the subscribers get early. I put out a blog. I've only put out 2 of them so far because it's just only been doing this since February. That's when the book came out. But plan on doing more. And if you subscribe, you get the blog before everybody else. The blog will eventually go on LinkedIn and my other social media. But the first month or so, only the subscribers get those, and the quote that I'm doing on a regular basis will come out. And then so you can go to the website and do that. And then you can also give me a call or sign me up to come speak at your organization if you so desire. And I talk about leadership. I talk about how to be successful. I have some history type briefings that I can do. And I certainly talk about my experience in the Army, the Gulf War and Kosovo and those things. So any of that's available. But I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I have both a professional and a personal Facebook that's out there. And I'm on Twitter, although I'm here to tell you, Chris, I can't figure out Twitter. Maybe I'm just too old. I don't know.
You're not the only one. No, I'm looking at the website right now, sir. And under the speakers tab, Ambitious Vet, you will find every single presentation that retired Lieutenant Colonel McCulloch leads. Your leadership legacy, the history of the Arab and Israeli wars, how to be successful. You can see all the presentations that he's packaged all for you. So make sure you go to ltcoakmcculloch.com. That's where you can get access to all this information. Well, sir, it's been an absolute pleasure. I have a page full of notes here on my behalf around and I think the biggest golden grenade I got was set the standards, but also hold people accountable for those high standards. I think I set high standards, but sometimes can fall victim to trying to do it all and not lead other people to high standards. And, just thank you for joining the show, sir. Thank you for not stopping to serve after 20 plus years of service. And thank you just for joining the show.
Well, Chris, thank you for having me, and I really have enjoyed it. And like I said, I'm happy to connect with anybody who's watching the show that would like to down the road. If you got a question, if you got something you want to talk to me about, I'm happy to do that. You just got to go to my website, see how to contact me, and I'm happy to do that for you.
The Ambitious Vet is available on all popular podcast platforms. Go to vettrainingcoaching.com to subscribe, rate, and share with fellow vets.
Ambitious Vet, just like retired Lieutenant Colonel McCulloch charged you to do at the last Golden Grenade section of this show of, set goals, make the plan, and execute within the next 24 hours. I encourage you, if you're looking to achieve your most ambitious goals and live the life you desire, check out the Full Focus Planner. It's now available at fullfocusplanner.com/ambitious vet. That's again, fullfocusplanner.com/ambitious vet. This is literally in the process of closing on a home out here in Texas. About to have our first baby girl January 2nd, Lucy Grace Hoffman, and managing a startup, and me and my wife both working from home right now. This Full Focus Planner is a lifesaver, but ultimately has me feel like I'm pushing the needle forward in every area of life that matters to me every single day. If you want that same feeling, go check out fullfocusplanner.com/ambitious vet.